Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to our virtual plant clinic. And if you were with us last week, you were warned that Dr. Lester would not be with us for this particular program, although he might pop in. He is occupied monitoring some Zoom meetings, apparently, some very large Zoom meetings, and he's the wizard in the background making everything occur. Um, so therefore, he has abandoned us for the day. But that's okay, because what happens when Dr. Lester isn't here and Lily is? We've got Bernie. Everyone say yay. Hey, Bernie.
Oh, thank
Good morning, Bernie, and welcome. And good morning, Buddy. Buddy is joining us this morning from Tallahassee, as he usually does. They knew you were coming, so we might get a big crowd because we like Bernie. See, woohoo! We have
Oh,
Bernie fans. Gail says woohoo, and Bassem is right here in Hernando County. He says good morning as well. And we have Beth. Beth Aaron is saying good morning. Good morning,
good
Beth.
morning.
Okay. Now we're letting everybody get settled. So I guess we can discuss a few things. If you have questions, really hard questions, now today's the day to ask them, because we have the esteemed, world-renowned master gardener Bernard Battauer is with us. So he is going to provide all the information we ever needed. It is warm outside, isn't it, Bernie?
It's unseasonable, but it's wonderful. It's really nice. The problem is we've done this before and then had frost in April, so don't get tricked into believing that all the bad is behind us. It's not true.
Really hard not to prune. I mean, I'm going to go out there and tell you I've done it.
Well,
But
I'm going to say on pruning, there are some things that really need to be done, and if it's green and it's on the ground, there's no problem whatsoever. Prune it, get rid of it. That's fine. If it's a plant, a fire bush is a wonderful example. Fire bush
mhm,
got killed back, and probably depending on where you live, not all the branches got killed. If you let it go like you should, the new branches will start growing up, and it's going to be very difficult to prune. The truth is, go in with a chainsaw, take it off at the ground, let the entire plant come back so that it's all the same
right,
size.
right. Because Firebush, now Lee and Broward probably didn't lose much of her Firebush, if she has any. But ours got, ours were fried, as they usually are here in Hernando County. And I noticed in front of the extension office, Master Gardeners, I tried to give them a citation for early pruning yesterday, being very hypocritical, because I did the same thing this weekend with my firebush. Firebush does not grow on any of that old dead stuff. It grows from the ground up. So, yeah, and there's not much, there's just sticks there. So there's not much vegetation like protecting that new growth that wants to come anyway. So, if your firebush is bothering you, go ahead and, like Bernie said, cut it down to the ground, let that new growth come up. I
Well,
have a bunch of beautyberry, and I mean, you don't have to prune beautyberry. I just do occasionally the ones that I keep in the more formal looking area of my yard. But new growth starts on the old branches. So, and that's already happening. So,
one of the big problems is citrus. People, uh, we don't have as much of it as we used to, but a lot of the shoots would get damaged, and people would want to go in and prune citrus. Well, you prune citrus, it starts new growth almost immediately. Very
mhm.
bad plant to prune early. The new growth is extremely tender. So if the old growth would withstand uh, 22 degrees, the new growth barely withstands 32 degrees. At 30 degrees, it's really getting some serious damage on your. So citrus type plants, trees, things that the main structure is going to stay there. When you start pruning on any of those type plants, they want to go into growth mode. And if we get one of those April freezes, you really foul up the new growth. So,
Mm-hmm.
Things that can start from the ground that are no big deal, like the fire bush, go ahead and clean that up.
Mm-hmm.
Things that are of permanence, a citrus tree, any tree that got some damage.
What about hibiscus? What about hibiscus?
Hibiscus is another one. Hibiscus is really a funny plant. That's one of the strange ones. It does well in a different environment, and it grows in Florida because you planted it. But it does not like being really dry, and it doesn't like being really wet, and it doesn't like being really pruned, and it likes to stab you with the thorns. It's a nasty plant to take care of, but they are beautiful. So if you have hibiscus, resist the urge, wait until April 15th. In fact, wait until April 15th on everything that you don't want to take it all to the ground. That's pretty much the best rule. If you're going to take it to the ground, you can do it whenever you want. If you're going to expect it to continue on from where it is minus the damage, wait until after April 15th to do any of the pruning.
And I also went through my wildflower garden. I know, a lot of the stems are used for bees and stuff, but I've kept them up that long. And I just kind of, with my weed eater, kind of knocked down all the dead stuff, letting it fly around. So, reseeding it there too. And because the Gaillardia is already coming up on its own. Milkweed, not the native milkweed, is a little bit coming up. People are asking me questions about the milkweed. I think we got a question last week. Of course, their tropical milkweed is wanting to, come all go crazy, and the native milkweed isn't yet. Well, that just tells you that the tropical milkweed, it's bordering on invasive. Probably where Lee is in South Florida, it is probably, getting pretty invasive. So by its nature, you got to keep it cut down by you keeping it cut down all winter, not so you don't inadvertently attract monarchs that will end up in a freeze here. So, but the native ones follow nature. They know when the time to come up, and, they probably follow daylight patterns, and they come up at a time when nature has decided is best. They evolved that way. So they're going to take a bit longer. If you want that instant gratification, I would still wait. Now, like Bernie said, you're taking chances pruning some things, and I understand it's already 80 degrees, and you're thinking, I better get out there and prune it now, because if I wait another month, it's going to be 87 degrees, out there, and that's unpleasant. So prune those things, like he said, that can go down to the ground. But when it comes to your milkweed, keep that tropical milkweed prune back. At least I like the April 15th date. And why? Because we could have another freeze. It's one thing taking a chance on your hibiscus. It's another thing killing off monarchs. So, don't encourage them to be here until we know it's going to stay warm.
One of the things that this is the perfect time to do is weed control. And we've just been through the perfect situation. This is as ideal as it ever gets in Florida for weeds. We had a freeze that killed most of the annuals, got rid of them. The annuals will not be perennials. It gives you an opportunity to go in, put down some pre-emergent for the seeds that haven't started popping up yet, stop them in their tracks. The perennials have been beat back. This is a great time to do weed control. And the thing you need to remember is that if you're doing weed control in a lawn, the above 85 degrees, those chemicals that are killing the weeds start damaging the lawn. So it's temperature wise a perfect spot. It's warm enough that the weed control is really going to do some good. It's not warm enough, you're going to kill your lawn. It's a great time, and nature has started it for you. So if you had a lawn problem or a weed problem, fence row type weeds, now is the time. Run out and do something. You'll do more good this month than probably any month we've had in the past 4 or 5 years. And so something to keep in mind.
But what I'm hearing on the radio, and I'm riding around in my car, and I must have heard it a dozen times in just a few days, it's time to put down Scott's Weed and Feed. What do you have to say about that for Southern Lawns? And it's playing in the Tampa Bay area.
The feed part's illegal in our county right now. We need to wait another month. And, weed and feed is not really a great product. Weed control for Southern lawns is fine. Weed and feed's not a good product. You can't use it except when the temperature is below 85 degrees. And by the time it's legal to use it here, we're getting into the higher temperatures. You can only use it in a very short period. You can't use it year round. If you own a box or a big bag of weed and feed, the tendency is in the middle of summer to look out and say, oh, it needs it again. And you go out and you use the weed and feed product. People come in, they've got pictures of these streaks in the lawn where the lawn's died. And the streaks are caused by running a spreader with weed and feed over the lawn in the middle of summer. So, it's a $6,000 mistake if you've got a really nice St. Augustine lawn and you weed and feed it in the middle of summer. So I just don't recommend the product. Weed control, get a product for the specific weeds you're trying to control, and a feed product, use a fertilizer that's right for your lawn. And basically that's one of those something 15015, 17017, slow release nitrogen, the kind of thing you can fertilize twice, fertilize in April, fertilize again August or September. And it's all the fertilizer your lawn needs. You start using these other products and if you use enough weed and feed that you get a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, it's an expensive product. You can only really use it once, So doing fertilizer and weed control separate makes a lot of sense. Doing them together may or may not make sense.
Right. Doesn't make sense in Florida anyway. Maybe it works up north.
A lot of things work up north, but they're not dealing with the same lawns.
Not at all. Nope. So I have figured out how to share things from a PowerPoint. So, and since I'm in charge, I got to talk about the watering restrictions here in Hernando County for our Hernando Countyans listening. Who in Hernando County does this apply to, Bernie?
That's everybody in the county. People think I've got a well. It doesn't apply to me. Well, the thing about it is you're sucking water out of the same pool that the county is sucking the water out of that they're providing. So what we're trying to do is maintain an aquifer, not just maintain the county watering system. So
ooh, I like that. I'm going to use that. We're maintaining an aquifer. So here are the watering days. Now, if some communities, gated communities, might have different days and they have applied for a variance with the Water Management District, they're still 1 day a week. They're not using more water than anybody else. They just, because of how their village system works and how their watering distribution system works, would prefer different days than what the county, says to do. That's mainly going to be timber pines. So, check with your HOA if you are listening from there. Otherwise, everybody else, City of Brooksville, if you have a well, everywhere. There's one gated community in the City of Brooksville, which I have recently become a little confused about because they are using reclaimed water. And I asked my boss about that, and she basically said, if you have questions about that, she doesn't know. It's the City of Brooksville. So, contact either your HOA if you are in that one gated community and you know who you are in the City of Brooksville. What your rules are with your reclaimed water. But everybody else, everyone else, whether you have a well, I have a well, you have a well, Bernie, right?
I do.
Yes. Even if you have a separate irrigation well, or even if that irrigation well takes water from a surface water source, we're all under 1 day a week watering. And you may say, well, that's unfair because of my situation. Or what if I promise to put down the same amount of water in 2 days instead of one? I'll let Bernie answer how that pertains to your lawn. How it pertains to regulation is we have 180,000 people to look at. We can't, well, okay, we'll trust Steve over there. That's not practical. So everyone has to have the same rules. And part of why we broke it up, by days and by times, is so that everyone doesn't decide at 5:30 on Monday it's their time to water. And that's a lot of pressure on our aquifer. So that is the regulation reason that we can't say, okay, you can do 2 days a week because we're going to trust you, that we just don't have the ability to control it that way. Now, what about for your lawn, Bernie, watering 1 day, compared to 2 days?
Well, the truth is 1 day a week works for about 90% of the year. There are about six weeks in the year where 1 day a week on poorly maintained lawn is not enough. And the thing that people don't understand is if you mow St. Augustine lawn, for instance, at 2 inches, the rootstock is about 2 inches long. If you mow it at 4 inches, which is its minimum recommended bow height, the roots go down about 8 inches. So if you're watering once a week, the first couple of inches dry out in a hurry. Well, if you've mowed it at 2 inches, the roots are no longer getting any water. But if you've mowed it at 4 inches, the roots are still 6 inches down into the damp soil and collecting water. So although it doesn't seem intuitive, the higher you mow the grass, the less water it needs. And because of that, poor lawn maintenance is probably the biggest reason that we have any problems at all. So, if you do everything the way you're supposed to, this works fine. If you want to keep it at half its regular height, half its suggested height, it's going to be a problem. Bahia, it turns brown, comes back. St. Augustine, it turns brown. Then they bring the truck out with a new Bahia or new St. Augustine, and for $6,000, you got a fresh yard and start over.
No, it can turn that golden winter color and come back if you left it alone.
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw a St. Augustine lawn freeze dead? Freeze dead, not any other issue.
That's not a problem here. We just had a big freeze and we didn't really lose lawns from freeze. That's
No.
not a
I'd
problem
say
to
20
handle
years.
now.
I'd say 20 years since I've seen that happen.
Yeah. Now, if you're in Gainesville, that's a problem. But in Gainesville, they're using a different type of lawn generally, and
Yep.
depends on where you are and what you're doing, how your habits are.
And I will remind people again. Well, I don't have to remind you because here is, and let me make this bigger so I can see it. Here is excerpts from a local Facebook group, from a local large community in our county. And so we don't have to do, and I've been warning and warning and warning, but this unfortunately is the best way that word is going to get around. The post was, make sure you water your lawn according to the schedule that is on the back of your water bill. Boom! She's telling everyone, it's right there on the back of your water bill. Turn your water bill over. Our watering restrictions are on every single bill. Some of you are going to say I auto pay or whatever. It's not hidden information. We have it out there. Does not matter if your irrigation system is on a well or not. Woo! All right. Civil violation notice says we owe the county $100 in 20 days. There are no warnings if they catch you. That's how code enforcement works. If they catch you violating, that's your warning. That your $100 is your warning. Do you know what the second violation is, Bernie?
No, I don't. How much do you get then?
$500. Do you know what your third violation is? You get to participate in Hernando County's magistrate system.
Oh.
And that special magistrate who is going to be, an attorney assigned by a judge to oversee these matters, they will decide what the next step will be. But here's just a few. There are a lot of answers, comments to this. Someone turned you in. No. What's happening is we have hired two new, code enforcement has hired two new water resource officers. That's their title. They're not just code enforcement officers. They're not worried about water over here and a sign over there and an old boat over there and trash over here. Watering restrictions. That's these two people's jobs. And you want to know what's really exciting about it, Bernie? They don't necessarily work 8 to 5 like most county workers. They are splitting shifts. They'll be out there at night. They'll be out there at weekends. And you know what I can do in just my regular county van that has a county emblem on it? I mean, I have to stop. I can't go through where the barcodes are in these gated communities. I have to stop there. They don't even talk to me. They just open up the thing and let me in because I have a county emblem. So these guys are going to certainly be doing the same. And they have code enforcement written on their trucks. So no, it's not necessarily someone turned you in. Someone else said.
I was driving through one of those communities about 6:30 in the morning, and there were 5 houses in a row that the sprinklers were going. Well, you know that only one of them can be legitimate. So
right.
Maybe they all ended in the last number in that particular.
Probably not. Here's what somebody else put. Does the county owe me money if I don't water? Well, then you and I, Bernie, are going to be getting lots of money, aren't we?
I am. I haven't watered the lawn ever. I've been
Me
here
either.
20-some years and haven't watered.
Yes. County trying to generate more funds. Those officers that were just hired, they have to be paid for. We're not out there just to get more money. Oh, I like this one because this is coming from a wonderful civil servant here who has, an eye on what's going on. I deliver mail, and I've delivered about 15 certified letters a day in the past 2 weeks. These guys are out there doing their job. They've been out this past month more than usual, except now this is going to become the usual. So pass the word out.
One of the things that people don't realize in the eastern part of the country is that water is a resource that is limited, and it has the ability to be perpetual but there's a limited amount that you can do and have it perpetual. And out west, they really understand why
Mhm.
why watering is a problem. When you don't have the water to take a shower and you don't have any water to drink, and it starts affecting your life in those kind of ways, then you realize how valuable water is. But when you're sitting here and we're 50 years away from running out of water, why should we worry about it now? Let's move it on down the line. It's our great grandkids' problem. It's not ours.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's a very selfish, very short-sighted way to look at things. Once you understand that the water is a limiting resource in Florida, then you shouldn't really object to doing things. And this, I have enough money. I can have any water I want. I don't mind paying. So I get a $3,000 water bill. I can afford it. Well, it's not that we mind you having the water. It's we don't have the water.
Right, right.
When you take the water away from future people, you're being selfish. You're not, and most people, fortunately, really try to do the right thing. It's not the neighborhood that's bad. It almost never, you can drive around and you see one yard that is green when everybody else is
Mhm. Mhm. Like,
slightly off color. Well, you know who's cheating, and
right.
it's not very many people, but those people make it bad for everybody.
This one you already answered, Bernie. How do you keep your lawn green? Only watering once a week. You've already answered that, so we're going to skip to the next one. Was one of my favorites, and it's kind of addressing the kind of people you were referring to. As far as I'm concerned, if you have a well, I can water. I'm using the pronouns as he did, switching back and forth. If you have a well, I can water the lawn anytime I want to. It's not city water, it's mine. If I get a summons, I would take it to the court in Brooksville and tell them to, and I didn't finish what he wrote. Yeah, that's not a sustainable type of attitude.
Well,
So,
if everybody did that, it wouldn't take very long, and he would find it his well wouldn't pump water anymore. So, there's a lot of water down there, but there's not a forever amount of water, and there's not enough to waste it. There's plenty as long as we conserve it. And I'm not one of those people that really pushes uh, the green things. I'm kind of a laissez-faire type, but this is one thing that really is important, and uh, water will be a factor in Florida for a long time, and if we build and don't conserve, we'll make it impossible to do things later on. And if you get to the point, if you live on the coast and hurricanes destroy the house and it becomes a constant thing, then your property values are going to go down. Well, if there's no water and people can't move to Florida because there's no water, nobody's going to buy your house. Your property values are going to go down. Everybody's going to be hurt. So, it's not just the selfish individual. It's what the selfish individual does to the community. And the community, for the most part, is filled with some really nice people here. So
for the most part, yes.
I love Florida.
Yeah, and Corey likes that. He suggested this last week. He wants to have that position on a commission only basis. Here you mentioned before the fertilizer ordinance. He said we're not allowed to fertilize right now. We got another month yet, before we're allowed to fertilize under the Hernando County fertilizer ordinance. And let me tell you this is how it exists today. It's under review. It's been under review since before COVID, but the wheels of government turn slowly. So I think now that things are kind of getting back on track, we're going to see this change. And when I say that, I don't mean it'll get less strict. What I think is they're also going to add probably June through August.
I think that the ordinance probably needs to have the dates changed a little bit.
They're going to add probably the summer months with the big rains and the stormwater runoff.
People don't realize that if the grass isn't growing, you fertilize. If you fertilize in December now, the grasses will not grow. And when we get any rain at all, fertilizer's lying there. This is pure sand underneath everything. As soon as the rains come, all that fertilizer that didn't get absorbed by the roots of the plant disappears into the water system. So we're poisoning our own water system, and we're not benefiting the lawns. The way it's been going, because the temperatures have changed, I would think maybe moving this ordinance back a month would make more sense, and make it December, January, and February. But then that would confuse people because we would cross the calendar at the end of the year. So,
Right.
I mean, this was kind of a compromise. Fertilizer application really only needs to take place during about a 3-month period in the spring and a 3-month period
In the fall.
So if we had 6 months that you could apply and 6 months that you wouldn't, that really wouldn't bother me. That would still give you more than ample time to really do a great job.
And I think that's what we'll be heading towards, if I were to guess. And there might be some of those months when even professionals are not allowed to apply. So that'll be a big change. Or maybe we will have them not apply January 1st through March 15th, or, something along those lines. Let's totally switch gears, because this has been in the news lately too, because this is what people are seeing. Bernie, what's this?
Boy, I've got lots of those in my driveway. I go out in the morning, and between the house and the road, there might be 100 of those little things like that.
Little tiny holes in your yard. Yes.
Yes, with a little mound of sand around it.
Mm-hmm. What is it? Are those ants?
It looks like the wrong size hole for an ant. Hey, I've heard that there are bees that do that. Do you suppose that could be those bees?
I think you might be right. You might be right. Why are bees in the ground, Bernie?
Because that's their reproductive system. They lay an egg in there. A lot of times they will, depending on the specific variety of bee, they capture another insect. They lay an egg on the insect. They dig a little hole. They put the feed down in the hole, and their offspring hatches. Lives
Will
off
they sting you? Will they sting you if you walk on them?
No. Very, very, very few of the non-honey bees actually sting. So these bees are really a good thing.
They're native bees.
They are native and
solitary, ground-dwelling native bees. We need them for pollination.
They were doing the pollination. The honeybees are not native. Honeybees are brought here from Europe, and honeybees didn't exist pre-Columbian. So these are the guys that did all the work. The honeybees get all the credit. But the
honeybees, they brought them with them because people had been, beekeeping since probably pre-biblical times. But the Europeans came with their certain crops. So they brought the bees that they had, farmed and kept and everything, that knew how to pollinate those crops. But before that, there was hundreds and hundreds of native bees. I think you asked me before we started how many in Florida. I'm going to guess like over 300 native bee species in Florida itself. There's over 400 across the nation. So they were doing the work, for the hunter-gatherers, you know. But when the Europeans came and had crops, they brought their honeybees with them to pollinate those specific crops. Nothing wrong with European honeybees. You know, they're here now. They don't cause a problem, and you know, they are very beneficial, but they're not the end all. They tend to be the superstars when we've got plenty of native bee, you know, supporting actors who
Yeah.
do fantastic jobs as well.
You know, people don't realize, along with these little ground dwelling bees, ground egg laying bees, we have a tremendous number of bees that live in other
Cavity
bees.
nesters.
And I don't know how many people know what a bee house is, but here is a bee house. This one was hanging on the wall out and back, and if you notice that some of the tubes have little plugs in them. Those have a little bee inside, and when it hatches and comes out, it will go off and do pollination and end up laying an egg in another little tube. This is a neat thing. We happen to build these here at the extension as a program we had going, and
We come on, say who builds them.
well, Teresa built them. Teresa made all the parts. Teresa put them together. Teresa went out and actually got the bamboo herself, cut it into lengths. It's the only woman I know that carries a table saw in her car. Anyway, this is a really neat thing, but it doesn't have to be this fancy. You can take a 2x4, drill holes in the 2x4, drill a bunch of 3/16 holes, 3/4 or quarter-inch holes, some 5/16 holes, some half-inch holes. Take the 2x4 and put it up someplace, put it on a tree, put it on a building, and you'd be amazed how many of those holes start filling up with little insects. So
Janice
it's
is
something you
Janice,
can do, and it's sure simple.
Janice is saying she has a bee house, but she's not sure where she should hang it.
Well, to give you an idea how critical it is, I took my little bee house from here home and I set it down in front of the garage, planning on hanging it up 2 days later. 2 days later, I went out to get it and it had 8 of the holes with plugs in them already. So it's not very critical where you put it at all. Any place that is going to be out of the way.
How long do those last, or should you replace those little bamboo tubes?
Well, you could clean it out on this one because it looks so nice. I would clean the tubes when more than say 50% of them are filled. But
Why should you clean the tubes? Why don't you just leave it out there for years and let it do its thing?
they don't reuse the sealed tubes. So
Okay.
other than that, it's not a problem. It's amazing how many things we have like this. And there again, these bees do not sting. It's not a case if you're going to draw something to the house that's going to attack you.
Right. Now, if you grabbed one and you irritated it enough, it will sting you, but it is not an aggressive stinger at all.
A high percentage of them don't really have the ability to hit you with
Okay.
a poison stinger. They're not. They don't need this stinger because they're not in defense of their home. Where a honeybee
Right.
has a colony that it's protecting. These guys have no colony. So
Solitary bees don't need to fight for the community. The only native bee that lives in a community is a a bumblebee.
oh, you don't want to mess with bumblebees.
Yeah.
Yeah, the community insects tend to hurt you. Even the reason ants are poisonous is that ants are community things that protect the community. So ants generate formic acid and nail you, and
Mm-hmm.
and those little red ants are the fire ants. they really nail you. But you know, the things that aren't colonial are generally just trying to exist, and they're not out doing the protection.
Let's see what else I have here. Oh, I just wanted to talk about my upcoming classes. Upcoming classes. Tomorrow I have a lunch and learn. It's a Zoom class. You can find the link on my Facebook page. I will post it. I'll post the class and put the link, in the comment or up at the top on Fragrantly Florida Friendly. This one's taken me a long time, Bernie. I had to start from scratch and actually do research. It's one of the ones, a lot of the things I do, I try to make them a little different here and there, but there's 9 principles and Florida friendly landscaping. So, we're just trying different ways to say the same thing. Well, then I come up with something like this to kind of force myself into starting from scratch and learning. So it's been interesting. And I enjoyed doing it. And I've learned some things, like even a photograph I took a couple years ago, I thought was like a wild blueberry. I thought it was in the Vaccinium family. It's not at all. It's a fetter bush, which is a native fragrant bush. So I learn things. I challenge myself to learn these things all the time. Bernie likes to learn things too. So when we used to work in the same, the same building, the same office, when he was doing what he does now, and I was just a few feet away at a desk, I think we annoyed people with all the things that we talked about and wanted to learn, and we could spend all day just talking. So, we lost him. I guess I scared him with saying that. I don't know. Hopefully he'll come back here. So if you want to join me tomorrow at noon, Fragrantly Florida Friendly. Don't worry if you can't make it. It's going to be recorded, just like all of them. It'll be available on. Well, thank you for joining us. Did I scare you?
I don't know what happened. Is the typical computer thing. It just don't.
Yeah. All of these are going to be recorded. They will be available. Well, not all of them. Not the one at the in-person one at the library on March 8th. All of the virtual ones are recorded and will be available within a few hours on Facebook, and then within a week or so. Sometimes that day, depends on what John has to do. John, the YouTube guy, what he has to do. But if you go to Hernando County Government YouTube, I think Bill and I direct you there all the time. You'll find all of my classes, all of Bill's classes. So we have a big event coming up, and if it is your opportunity to come and meet Bernie in person, yay, that's our big star, at this Florida Friendly Earth Day celebration, the 2nd annual Florida Friendly Earth Day celebration. It's going to be Saturday, April 22nd on Earth Day from 9 until noon here in Brooksville at the Hernando County Master Gardener Nursery, which is at 19490 Oliver Street in Brooksville. I'm emphasizing that because Olive Street is a beautiful brick street in downtown Brooksville that you'll enjoy the view, but not be at the right place. So make sure you come to Oliver, not Olive Street. Bernie will be there at Ask a Master Gardener table, so you can talk to him in person. I know Monique got to meet him last year when he did that. I'll be there. There'll be a kids craft table. All of this is free. So a kids craft table, from what I hear, rumor has it that they're going to be painting rocks into ladybugs and other such things. Rita Grant is a native plant expert. She's not only going to be on hand, but she's going to be teaching propagation of native plants. We have a very talented master gardener named Sean, who is a photographer. So he's going to take you around the different plants, any insects that you find, teaching macro photography. Don't worry about even having a camera. He can teach you how to do this on your phone, depending on the different kind of phones that you have. And I believe, last I heard, Master Gardener Wynn might possibly do the pruning demonstration. We will have Hernando County Mosquito Control will be there. Hernando County Recycling, he's got to be there. Audubon and Hernando County Storm Water Runoff.
You know, you mentioned Wynn's going to be there. Wynn is without a doubt the most knowledgeable man I have ever met on flowering plants of Florida. So if you have any question whatsoever on flowering plants that will survive in this state, there is the man that has the knowledge. He's just brilliant. I can't say enough nice about the guy. I cannot believe that one guy knows that much. So.
Well, you know, lots of people say that about you, Bernie, too. That's the neat thing about hanging out at Extension and Master Gardeners in general. What I always say about Master Gardeners, why I love hanging out with them, is if you ask them a question that they don't know the answer to, they're not going to say, I don't know. What are they going to say? I don't know. I better find out. You know?
Yes, let me get back to you. Give me your
Yes.
some address, some way to get in touch.
It's just a fantastic way to keep your mind curious. And, you know, that's if as long as you're curious, you're living, you know, in my opinion. So I enjoy Master Gardeners. That is what we have. So we'll remove that from the stream. We have about 15 minutes left. If there's any more questions we have for Bernie.
How about we talk about farming? I'm from the Midwest, from Indiana, and the things that have happened to farming since I left Indiana are almost unbelievable. You know, the farmers go out now, and the tractors are basically an electronic machine. A lot of the tractors are self-driving. They'll go out and plow a field, plant a field, harvest a field. It's amazing. They have GPS. The GPS can run the tractor within a few inches. They go out and they vary the number of seeds that they put in depending on what productivity a particular acre has. And the way they know what productivity they've got is that when they're harvesting, they keep track constantly of the harvest all over the fields. So they know that they were getting 26 bushels to an acre here, and 180 bushels to an acre there, and 200 bushels to an acre there. They go back, they run soil tests, and there's a group that really understands what a soil test can do for you. They will do a grid system, maybe every acre. They take a soil test. They may take some tests where you take 1 inch down, 2 inches down, 3 inches down, 4 inches down, and find out exactly where the nutrients are. Some nutrients move around in the field, some don't. So if you put phosphorus down and you put it on top of the ground, it takes years for it to leach through. You put nitrogen down and it goes through pretty quick. I think sulfur, for instance, goes through fairly quick. So you need to know where this fertilizer is so that it ends up in the root zone. So the things that are already at 6 inches, you don't need to worry about. The things that are on top, maybe you need to turn the soil and move them down. So they take all these soil tests. They look at every one of the essential nutrients, and then because they've got every grid, they know exactly where they need to put more fertilizer when they go out and put fertilizer, there again, the GPS has got this map built in, and it applies more fertilizer in some places than it does others. It is just amazing what is happening, and these people are doing this on a basis of $3 or $4 an acre expenditure. Means a lot because they're not making tremendous numbers of dollars, but when they put down fertilizer goes up 20%, which it's gone up 50% in the past couple of years. You really want to be careful that you don't put too much fertilizer where you don't need it, and you start figuring now if it's going to cost me $100 in chemical on this acre, and I get $20 more back, maybe that's not economical. And the chemicals that are being developed, 2,4-D has a problem in that when you spray it tends to evaporate, move around. So there are some
drift problems. Yes,
drift, exactly. So they have developed a new 2,4-D that doesn't have the drift problem. So if you have somebody that is next door that has a crop that they're trying to make money from, and you spray 2,4-D and you kill their crop, that's going to present some real serious problems. So the new 2,4-Ds don't have the drift problem. They don't have the water control problems, the water pollution problems. And they constantly come up with things that are more effective. And it turns out that weeds become resistant. When you go out and spray the lawn weeds in your yard, the weeds that are going to be resistant to that particular chemical keep living. And next year, that chemical may not be as effective because now we've got a resistant weed that's moving around. Well, the farmers have the same problem. If you have weeds in the field, all the nutrition that the weeds take damages the crop itself because it takes away from their ability. And maybe some of those weeds will maintain an insect that you're trying to get rid of. Corn rootworm. There's some insects or there's some weeds that corn rootworm can also survive on that weed. So if you have soybeans, you don't want carryover corn in your field, because now that carryover corn is going to keep the rootworms in the field. The next year when we plant corn, we're going to have a lot more bugs. So they have sprays that you can use that don't hurt the soybeans and do damage the corn, the wild corn. They have soybeans that are resistant to Roundup. So you put down Roundup and it doesn't hurt the beans, but it kills all the weeds. And it's amazing. They have done these things in such a short period of time, and it makes you realize that we could be doing the same thing in our own lawns and in our own landscape.
Being more efficient. Yes. And I was just thinking, as you were saying all that, people love to blame farmers for various, pollution and things. A farmer is a business person. A farmer, in order to keep their business alive, has to be as economically efficient as possible, as you were just saying. So they develop all these different strategies to get more, produce, literal produce, and that is for all of us to eat, So they develop all these strategies and, technology and everything to get more crops for the money.
Well,
but meanwhile, we have Bob in his gated community in Central Florida, looking at his little quarter-acre lawn, thinking, if 1 pound per square inch of nitrogen for my lawn is good, 2 pounds is probably better. You would think, how is Bob in his quarter acre going to cause much of a problem as compared to, Farmer John with his 2,000 acres, but he's being very efficient. He wants to make some money. No, multiply Bob by 1 million people here, 6 million, whatever, in Florida. That is what we call non-point source pollution, and that is the bigger pollution problem in our country today. See, I got where you were going with that.
Exactly. The thing about it is that the farmer probably spends $7 or $8 on chemicals an acre, unless he's got a problem. The normal insecticide and pesticides that they need, if you've got 300 acres and you're spending $10 an acre, you're looking at $3,000 in expense. So they don't want to put anything down that they don't have to. They don't want to put any more down than they have to. And their pollution is not really as bad, because here are people that are optimizing the things that they're doing, and the people that don't do that don't survive. So farming has become a really great place. So many of the chemicals that the homeowners use are things that were developed for agriculture and then moved to horticulture.
But we need to teach the homeowner to be as efficient as the farmer, even if it's not financially efficient, because they've proven, some of them, not all of them, have proven they're willing to pay more to water as much as they want. So they may be willing to pay more to fertilize or weed and feed or whatever as much as they want, but maybe more efficient for the sustainability, and of their landscape.
The thing that we can do is the soil tests are really beneficial. The homeowner, you move into a new home, and the builder has put in soil that's not native soil to level off the ground. They probably put in something that's pretty decent in the front yard, so they can at least get enough grass to grow to sell the house. And the backyard is whatever trash they could find to fill it in and level it up. And that's not going to change very much over a long period of time. So if you move in, you do a soil test in the front, a soil test in the back, you've got a fairly good idea of what you have to work with. And people that are in the lawn business, they now know the pH, and they know what the basic nutrient level is. And they've got a pretty good idea of what needs to be done to help you take care of the lawn.
How do you do a soil test?
Well, you go to the extension office, and they give you the equipment or they give you the test container, and you send the container to either the university or a private lab. We do both here in our extension office, and either one of them will come back. You get a little more information if you go with the private. It costs you about $30, and it includes postage and gives you opportunity.
If you send it to City University, it's 10, right?
And it's 10, but you got to pay the shipping of the sample, so it ends up it costs you about $16. With the university, it costs you $30 with the private, and you get, like I say, you get a little more information on the private depending what you need. But the $10 the test, I think everybody should have the $10 test on their front and backyard. So you're looking at $20 in shipping. Outside of that, the things that the farmers do. A lot of their chemicals are not available because the chemicals require a professional to apply them. And some of them are being applied by these professionals. But, you know, you have to be licensed. You can't just go out and buy the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So what we end up doing is you get a brown spot in the lawn, your neighbor says, you got chinch bugs, you go down to the store, you buy a bug killer, you go back, you dump an insecticide on the lawn. It didn't need the insecticide, doesn't do you any good. It was something else entirely. The insecticide ends up in the drinking water because it goes right into the aquifer. Everything you put on the lawn goes into the aquifer. Remember that. If you don't kill a bug, you're killing yourself. So think about that when you put something down. My rule on that is don't ever put any chemical down unless you know exactly why. You know, if you're using an insecticide, this chemical kills this bug. Do I know that I have to kill this bug? And if you don't know that, don't use that product on the lawn. And the same way on the fertilizers. If you're using the wrong fertilizer, you're not really doing anybody any good. You're not going to end up with the results you want, and you're spending the money. You know, that's wasteful money, and it delays the inevitable. So the inevitable is you're going to spend money and get it corrected, or it's going to die, and you're going to spend money to get it replaced. So, you know, don't waste your money.
There we go.
If you don't know, that's what people like me are here for. Bill is brilliant on this kind of thing. You talk to Bill about I have a problem with the lawn. I got these little bugs. He looks at it. The man knows his bugs. He's a buggy guy, but he can tell you exactly what will do the quickest, easiest, least damaging to the environment way to solve that problem. And that's what you need. If you don't know yourself, then probably pick up the phone and give us a call, or give somebody a call. Don't ever listen to the guy next door. The guy next door knows less about it than you do. So
unless you live next door to Bernie.
No, I don't have a neighbor. I'm one of those.
I know.
So
you do have neighbors. I've heard you complain about them. They're just further away.
Yeah, but they're not next door, you know.
Right.
But anyway, I think that that what's happening in the agricultural community today has just moved growing things so far forward, but it's going to take the horticultural people a while to catch up with exactly what's going on. There's a program called Ag PhD on RFD TV, and if you have any interest at all in farming, it's amazing what you can learn from that show. That's another really good one.
It may take a while, but I have hope for the future because I don't see millennials and Gen Z being obsessed with their lawns. Do you?
I hope not. I think that we're going to, you know, the lawn thing is my specialty, and lawns in Florida do extremely well, considering, you know, it always goes back to this thing that we're at 28 degrees north latitude, and the whole world at 28 degrees north latitude does not support grass that it makes a lawn. You know, our native grass is bunch grass. It's a wire grass. It's a bunch grass, and it grows underneath pine trees, and it's pretty, but it won't form a lawn.
It's not a meadow grass, no.
That's what we've got. And then there are the really big grasses that don't form a lawn, and the things that have been brought in from all over the world. And if it wasn't for the fact that they put the railroad in and people got off the train and said, oh, there's no grass in Florida, we wouldn't even have this grass problem.
Okay, well, let's blame the railroad. And now And don't forget to blame air conditioning and mosquito control as well.
Yep, wouldn't have the people in Florida if it wasn't for those two things.
That's right. So it's after 11. It's 5 minutes after. It was very enjoyable listening to you, Bernie, and we'll have to get together again sometime. But join us next week when I assume Dr. Lester will be back. And, oh, one thing I forgot to mention, every Thursday the Extension Office now has Bernology, or Thursdays with Bernie, whatever it is they're going to decide to call it. So sometime this afternoon, there'll be another little 5 to 7 minute little impromptu video in which Bernie's going to talk about something. Usually you don't even know till right before, something that happened to him that day that he would like to share with us, something in the plant clinic. Go back on Extension, Hernando Extension's Facebook page, look at the other Bernologies. You did Take All Root Rot last week, right?
Right.
Yes. So stay in touch with us, stay in touch with Bernie, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you, everybody.
People.
Bye-bye. And Buddy gives us a thumbs up, and we're going to go. Bye-bye.